Welcome, everybody. We're still having some people join us, but I want to make sure we start on time. A few quick introductions and a little housekeeping at the beginning. One, this webinar is going to be recorded, actually is being recorded, so we can publish these after they're recorded so others can view them, or you can come back and review it a second time. My name is Steve DeWild. I'm the NTDF manager and thrilled to have you with us today. I'm joined by two amazing people that will be watching chat that we'll cover in a moment. One is Sarah Wagner. Sarah is the manager of all things grants in the neighborhoods department. Also online is Fred Wickham, who's the NTDF coordinator. And Fred will be kind of managing a lot of the chat. And if you don't already have it open, what I would suggest is if you go to the very top of your navigation line, far left, and open the chat. We're going to be using chat for kind of Q&A during the session. We'll also be taking a couple Q&A breaks and one larger one at the end. So if you think of questions as we're going through this, jot them down or drop them in the chat. The reason we're using chat rather than Q&A, everybody can see chat. And what we've discovered is several people may have the same question and it allows us to address it once, or you may see a question that will trigger another question for you. So if you have questions, please drop them in the Q&A and Fred or Sarah will get back to you. And we will also then take some breaks. For all of you that had pre-registered, emails went out yesterday and the second time this morning for the newer folks that included 3 sets of documents for you. One is the set of slides that we're using today, so you'll have those for reference and also to make notes on. And then we also sent out a copy of all the screens for the organization profile that we'll be talking about and for the event application. If you happen not to have gotten all of those ahead of time, or if you registered a little bit later, if you scroll to the very top of the chat, there are links for all 3 documents. The first document is the slides in a 2-up format, so you can download that PDF. There are also a set of screens for the organization profile. You can download those, and then you can also download from those links the event application. The last 2 of those will be helpful for you as you kind of plan your application. That way you already know the questions and the narratives that are being expected and the information that is required. So that's kind of the background and the housekeeping. We're going to jump right into the slides. We're going to be going through those. And again, as a reminder, if you have questions or things come up, please drop them into the chat, and Sarah and Fred will be monitoring those for us. When we take the breaks, all 3 of us will be working with you on any Q&A that comes in. I'm going to turn off my camera so you have the opportunity of just focusing on the slides rather than looking at me. So off we go. So our agenda for today is going to be covering 3 main areas. So we're going to do the overview of what NTDF is and the eligibility requirements. We're going to be then talking through the NTDF application process and the use of the portal. And then we're going to do a final section to do kind of a quick preview of what will happen if you or your organization are awarded, so you understand the expectations that are coming. We also will then have a larger webinar focusing on just the what's next. So this will just be a quick overview. Between each of these, we will be doing a short Q&A break for everybody to get caught up on any questions. So what is NTDF? NTDF provides funding to support events in KCMO hosted by nonprofit organizations. And then we always get a question of how is NTDF funded, especially in this day and age with a lot of changes going on with federal grants. NTDF is not funded through any federal programs. It's actually funded through the local convention and tourism tax. So the changes in federal funding does not affect NTDF. NTDF on average receives between $2 and $3.5 million a year to work with. One thing to keep in mind about NTDF is functions like a lot of other grant programs. It is a reimbursable award. So how that works is after your event is completed, you will have 90 days to complete a final report and submit it with the expenses. At that point, then the reimbursement for the expenses and the award happen. In cases where organizations need advance funding, there is also an option available for up to 50% advance funding for NTDF. That is done only on requests. So what's the purpose of NTDF? Actually, NTDF was originated by a state of Missouri statute that created it. They also created the name. So we did not name this NTDF. It was named Neighborhood Tourism Development Fund by the state statute. The purpose of NTDF is to promote Kansas City neighborhoods through cultural, social, ethnic, historical, educational, or recreational activities, i.e. sports, in conjunction with promoting the city as an international trade, convention, visitor, and tourism center. So there is really two parts to what NTDF is. It's the promotion of neighborhoods within the city, and it's promoting the city itself and bringing tourism into the city. So think about that as you're working through the events that you're looking at to make applications on. Okay. Eligibility for organizations. We already mentioned that we work with nonprofits. The nonprofits have to be incorporated in Missouri and in good standing with the state, and also recognized as a 501c3 tax-exempt organization with the IRS and as in good standing with the IRS. Those are the two key pieces that we check initially when organizations first register, and then we recheck those with applications. Now notice that says incorporated. That means these are nonprofit corporations. We cannot work with trusts or foundations because they're classified differently in Missouri and can't provide the documentation that we need to approve the organization. When we say there may be some older organizations out there that were created as benevolent societies, those are recognized as nonprofit corporations. Those are no longer created in Missouri, but some older organizations still exist under that nomenclature. And then the organization must have its physical address for its offices must be within the city limits of Kansas City. Now, something I want to point out there, a lot of organizations use P.O. boxes as their mailing address, and we understand that it allows for more flexibility. But if you use a P.O. box within your application, you then need to use two lines. You can put the physical address where your offices are located on the first address line, and on the second address line, then you can put in the P.O. box number. We have to have both of those. If you submit something with just the P.O. box, we will push it back to you and ask for an edit to be done and to be corrected and include the physical address. If you have more than one physical address, we know that occurs with some organizations. They have an office location, but then they also have a second building or address location that they do activities at. What we're looking at for is the actual office location. Think of it this way, it should match the primary address you're using with the Secretary of State's office. So if those questions come up, we'll be available, and we'll also give you information on contact information for us if it becomes confusing, if you have multiple addresses, or how to deal with it. Event eligibility. What we're looking for are events that have an appeal to people who live in Kansas City, who would maybe not go into that neighborhood normally, but might drive from north to south or central city to attend an event. So we see that as movement within the city, kind of inner city tourism, but also a clear appeal to people who do not live in the city. It could be people who are already here visiting and would see an event that they want to attend while they're here, or people who travel to the city specifically to go to the event. That's where the tourism part comes in. The event, similar to where the organization is located, must take place within the city limits of Kansas City. One of the key things that we have to note is all events must be open and marketed to the general public. Where we've seen this there are some great conventions that come to the city, but conventions that come and only allow their members to attend, that wouldn't be open to the general public. So we've had to decline some organizations that are bringing actually large groups of people to the city, but it's not open to the general public. It's open to only their members. So keep that in mind also as you look at opportunities to what events would qualify and should be applied for. The NTDF application guides have been updated this year. To create a little bit more equity, in other words, more people have opportunities for applications or events, we're creating a limit right now, and the number of event applications that any one organization can submit is limited to 3. What we're suggesting is, where appropriate, individual events be combined into a series. Think of it as something a lot of events already are series. So think of a concert series or a season ticket where you buy it and then there are multiple concerts within it that are different. So we're suggesting some organizations revisit the events they've been submitting and look at opportunities to turn those into a series. We are also limiting the amount that can be requested within the applications. That will range anything from $2,500 to $100,000. So nothing under $2,500 and nothing over $100,000. There is a second opportunity for smaller events through the city manager's office, and we will provide links within our guide, and we also will have links on our website for those. It's a smaller group of NTDF funds that are used for smaller events, so we're suggesting that as an opportunity also. And the event applications must now include revenue in addition to the NTDF fundings that are requested. So we've seen in the past too many organizations that are depending solely on NTDF funding. NTDF is not intended to be the prime and sole funding for an organization. It's intended to be funding that can be used to plus up things like marketing and advertising to get a better reach for that, but not the sole. So the applications will be reviewed and pushed back this year if they don't have additional funding. That could be other grants, foundation information. It could be individual donations, or it could be things like sales of tickets or merchandise, etc. Now, what we've included on this slide is there is a full new set of guidelines that can be downloaded that will give you all the information in addition to this piece of information. It's a rather long URL at the bottom. That is available. That's also in the slide set that was sent to you. So you'll have that URL there. You can also go to the NTDF site, which would be kcmo.gov/NTDF, and then click on the button that says how to apply. And there'll be a link on that page also. So don't think you have to type in that full URL. But we wanted to have you aware of the additional updates that had been made to the guidelines for this year. We're going to take just a quick pause and see if there are any questions that came in that we need to address about kind of the overview and some of the guidelines. Fred, is there anything that we need to take care of?
Yeah, Steve, we had one question about the limit on the amount you can apply for. Someone's asking, is the limit per event or cumulative for the
sure.
Yeah,
that's a great event. That's actually per event, so per application. So if a organization were requesting 3 different events at, and the total was over $100,000 across the 3 events, that wouldn't be breaking the limit. The limit is on a per event or per application basis, not an aggregate across all the events. So great question, and thanks for bringing that up.
Another question we have from Gwen. She says, just want to be sure a 501c3 foundation cannot receive funding from NTDF. Maybe go over that distinction.
Yeah, a lot of organizations have the name foundation in them. The trick I would suggest to you is look at your Secretary of State registration and see how it is set up there. Secretary of State will view foundations differently than nonprofit corporations. The other thing to look at is how the 990s are being filed with the IRS. There's actually 2 check boxes at the top of a 990 form, which is the annual form nonprofits have to fill out with the IRS. And they will check a 501c3, so that's what it would be. And then also there are 3 or 4 check boxes underneath. One is corporation, one is foundation, and one is trust. Trusts and foundations actually cannot get a certificate of good standing from the Secretary of State's office. And for us to contract with them, we have to actually have that document. So I would double check how it's been set up with the Secretary of State, and then double check how they are filing with the IRS. This is something we ran into about 3 years ago, where an organization was created as it was a little different situation. But for example, like museums, a lot of museums are done as foundations or trusts. And if they're a full foundation or a full trust, we actually cannot work with them. But I would double check the status with the IRS filings, and then also with the Secretary of State, how it was originally incorporated with them. Okay.
Hey, Steve, we have a couple more questions that I think need some clarifying. So there's a couple questions about what is an event or what this grant can be used for. I'll let Steve kind of get into the details, But just to let everyone know, we understand that funding right now is, really up in the air, and that a lot of nonprofits are looking for funding, but this program is specifically for events happening in Kansas City. And, we encourage you to apply for those events and not try to stretch your program to fit into this funding. But Steve, I'll let you expand on that.
Sarah, thank you for the top overview on that. We saw this happen a little bit on last year's. We had a larger number of groups apply. A lot of it because of what Sarah was referring to, the tightening of funds available through the federal government right now. But NTDF is designed from the state level on through to be for events. Now, an event is something that, as we noted before, is open to the general public. So, for example, a neighborhood group, we have neighborhood organizations that are set up as 501c3 and are nonprofit corporations with the state. We could not fund ongoing neighborhood meetings or neighborhood services that they're doing. What we could do is if they were to have a major opening, say they redid their park or they redid a playground, and they have a big celebration opening that they're inviting people across the city to, that would be allowable for that organization as long as it's open to the general public, etc. What we couldn't do are ongoing HOA meetings. That's a different thing. Or a year-round program that they're doing for recreation for kids in the neighborhood. It's a different thing. Events would also include like concerts, performances by arts groups. Think of an event as having a begin and an end date. In some cases, it can be the same day. It's like a 2-hour event or a 1-day event. Or it could be a weekend event. There are some weekend music concerts and festivals that last across the entire weekend. It could be things like a run or a race that's done, again, starting on one day and maybe ending just the end of the day. It could be a celebration within the neighborhood. It could be for an organization that's creating we have one nonprofit organization that does year-round activities, but for example, they have a gallery that's open, but then they actually have a special program that they do that they invite parents and children in to see either a performance or have a speaker, etc. So think of the difference of, is this an ongoing thing we're doing year round, in other words, a service, or is it an event we're holding? We worked with one last year and the year before that they used an event to launch a 6-month display within a museum. So we weren't funding the display, we were funding the event that kicked off the display and made it kind of publicized to people within the community and within the city, and nationally they had some people attend also. So let us know if that kind of helps define that for you. If it doesn't, we can get a little deeper into that. Or my other suggestion is, if you're debating doing something and not sure, we're going to give you some contact information at the end, and we'd recommend that you contact us if it's something that feels fuzzy to you. You think it might qualify but aren't sure. We'd rather you take the time to contact us and clear that before you go through the work of doing an application and find out that it doesn't qualify and it gets rejected. So, and if you think of other things you need, we're going to do another Q&A a little bit later and then one at the end. So thank you for those questions. Okay, we're going to kind of jump into the NTDF process itself. The process consists of multiple steps. In other words, you're going to do your application. So you submit it. Once it's submitted, it gets reviewed by our staff. So we review the organizations and the events for eligibility. If there are questions or there's information missing, we will push those back to you to get corrections. Once those are all through, then those are reviewed by the NTDF committee. So NTDF has a freestanding committee appointed by the city council that represents them. So the city council doesn't directly run NTDF, it's run through an NTDF committee on behalf of the council. They will then review these, they will do deliberations and interviews in some cases, and then they will actually make recommendations for what they think the awards should be per each individual event. That their recommended awards will be turned into an ordinance that has to go through a city council committee. Once it's through the committee, it will then be passed to the full council for review. At that point, they have the ability to actually override or change the committee's recommendations. We have yet to see that happen, but it is possible. Once the city council reviews and approves the ordinance, finally, that's the point that we will be able to announce the awards to the recipients. We also send the letters I don't like sending, which are the ones for events that got no award. You have to understand, last year we had almost 340 event applications, and 331 of those were awarded. So there are cases that the committee has to make a decision on how they're using funding. So once those are approved, we will send those out. Now, how that timeline looks, the submissions end January 16th, that most of you are aware of. So our staff will spend January 20th through February 13th reviewing all of those. The NTDF committee then will start their work on around mid-February through mid-March. And then from mid to late March, all the work with the city council takes place. So we're looking potentially, even though this is ending in January, of getting notifications out in late March to mid-April. The reason we want you to be aware of that, last year we got a lot of questions from people that within 2 weeks after the end of the submissions, they were asking how soon they would know. We want you to be aware that being a government agency, as the city is, there are a lot of restrictions that we work within, and one of them is everything we do has to go as an ordinance through the city council, and that does take some time. And with the number that we're reviewing that we learned from last year, it takes a long time to get through 300 and plus applications, and do it with diligence and do it thoroughly and appropriately. So you will be seeing the final announcements for this in late March, early April. Now, we're going to run some quick oversight screens. There are two main screens that you have to be aware of. There is a registration screen, and then there's also a login screen. If you're a very first-time user of NTDF's portal, and the reason I emphasize you're using NTDF the first time through the portal, we have organizations that have worked with NTDF back in the 2017s, 18s, 19s, early 20. The new portal was installed in 22. So if you had grants from us prior to then, you're still new with us. So you'll have to do a registration. It's the way that we allow you or permit you to get into the portal. The top of the screen have two options: registration or login. The registration screen is the one that will give you all this, actually a short group of information, which would be this information. So the name of the organization, the person sending it in, sorry, your role, the name of the organization, the EIN, in other words, the federal registration for the organization, then the primary address, and this is what we discussed before. If you use a POI address, put it on line 2, put the physical address on line 1. At the bottom of the screen, you will actually then confirm that this address is within the city limits. If you're not sure, we have a link at the bottom that you can look up the address through the council's district website. And if the address is outside of the city, you'll not find a match. If it's within the city, you will find it pinpointed in which district it is. Now, we want to also in the future know what district you're from, so be aware of which district your organization is located in. Once that is completed, you'll hit register at the bottom. What you're doing is you're requesting that you can be registered. Our staff will review two primary things on this. They're going to check you against the IRS records. They're going to check the name of the organization against the Secretary of State's files, and they will also check the address to make sure it's within the city. Once that's been checked, we will be approving it, and then you will get an email from the system that will allow you to set up a sign-in to the portal. And the address that will be used as the sign-in address is what you submitted here as the contact information. Now, for anybody who's returning, they're going to go into the login screen. And all they have to do then is, and once you're registered, you will then use this screen. So you will put in your email address and the password that you set. Now, I will tell you, we do not know your passwords. Those are private. So if you actually forget your password, there's a nice little button here that the system will send you a reset notice that says forget your password, ? So don't call us if you've forgotten a password. We can't do it. And then there's a reminder at the bottom, if you don't have a login, you may have to register. So only register if you haven't been in the system previously. What will happen occasionally, we have groups that will turn in a registration, and we do double check that to make sure that you're not double registering within the system. So those are kind of the simple ones. Once you register and once you're signed in, everybody will always, when you sign in, go to a dashboard page. This will be your home page for your organization for the entire future. If you are brand new and it's your first time in, you'll see a screen like this. And we'll talk about this in detail in a moment, creating an organization profile. But it will be very minimal. There'll be very little information on it. If you're a returning organization, your dashboard screen will have your registration stuff to start, or your organization profile stuff to start a new application with, but you will also see all your past history. So if any cycles that you've been in the past will also appear on the screen. So new organization, minimal screen. Returning organizations that have been with us the past will have a bit more information on it. And as we talk kind of through the application process, you'll see why this is beneficial for returning organizations. Now, The application actually starts in two parts. You have to do the organization profile. First, once you've completed the organization profile submitted, then you will be able to do the event application. This is actually a two-part process. So understand, organization profiles will happen once. And then if you have event applications, then you will fill out those. Remember, minimum of or maximum of 3. But this way, how it works is you don't have to fill out the organization's information except once. So all the events will tie back to that one organization profile, and you will just then create the events individually through the create events. So if you are having multiple events, as you turn those in, or you go to create an event. So I want to go back to this screen for a second. When you click create event, if you are brand new, you will have to start from scratch. If you are a returning organization, you will see an area that shows your past events from previous cycles. You have the opportunity to do a copy to a new event. So, for example, if you do a concert series every year that you've done for 3 or 4 years, you could just do a copy and then create and update the information for the new 26-27 organization's concert series. So it makes it a little quicker if you were doing it that way. If you're creating a new event that you've never done before, you will just click on create a new event, which will take you into a blank application. If you use this one up here, it will pre-fill the application with any information that can carry forward. Some information will not carry forward, like dates, because the old dates would be stale. New event here, repeating events from here. So once the application is submitted, we're going to be talking about that in a moment. It will show you that the application is submitted at the top of the screen. The system will constantly give you confirmations on the screen. So you'll know things are being saved and submitted. Once the application has been submitted, it will show down here, and you'll notice it says submitted, and your only action at that point is being able to view it because you've already submitted it to us. You can't go in and change it. The only way you'll be able to change it is if we find an error on it and push it back, and then you'll have edit privileges on it. If you have another event to do, you'll press the create event button, and then you will go on to either creating a new event or copying an existing event. And at the top, it also shows you that your profile has been submitted too. So the screen is your kind of home space that gives you all the information on that one. Now, one of the things that we want you to be aware of is kind of why this is a two-part process. I mentioned a little before. It allows you to do an organization profile just once and then multiple event applications underneath it. So our old paper-based system, you had to fill out the organization information at the top of the application and then the event application at the bottom, all in one form. And historically, what we had were a lot of conflicting organization profiles. In other words, not all 3 of them got filled out the same. So we had an organization that suddenly appeared not once, but 3 times, and they were actually just the same organization. That's been corrected by going with an electronic application where the organization profile is done once, and then the applications for the events all individually tie to it. And again, a reminder, there are a maximum of 3. Now, I will tell you that the system does not govern that yet. So if you were to turn in 4 applications, that would be caught by our staff. And the 4th one would be pushed back to you and declined. And then you would have a choice of, do I want that one or the other 3? So you would get a pushback if you submit more than 3 applications to us. Now, a little bit of foreplanning. The organization profile and the event applications, you'll be doing some P&Ls that are required. We sent a copy of both of the applications to you. The organization, we want a copy of P&Ls as far as your budgets from the current year or the past year and any audited budgets. So be aware of those. Look at the organization profile application slides so you're aware of what information is going to be requested from you. And then also look at the event application, because it will require a whole series of budget information, not just the narrative for the event, but the planned budget for that organization. It'll include the revenue for it, which would include NTDF that you're asking for, and like we mentioned, any other revenue that you're getting, whether through other grants or foundations or donations or sales of tickets, etc. But remember, we have to have not just NTDF as a revenue source, but something in additional to it. NTDF, if you turn in one with NTDF only, that will be pushed back to you. So use both of those slide sets for planning as you work through before you jump in to do the application. It will help you know what narratives are required, and you can plan your narratives better. Some group actually take time to pre-type their narratives separately and then being able to copy them in once they go into the application. So, sorry about that, a little rough throat today. So within the portal, you'll find something that it's very consistent. The navigation within it has been designed so whether you're doing the organization profile or you're doing the event application, you'll see a consistency in all the navigations. The first thing you will note, there are tabs across the top of either one. In this case, we're using screenshots from the event application. So you will, as you progress through it, you'll see the highlight will move from the general tab once you've completed it. At the bottom of the page, on the very first page, you'll have 2 options. The system will let you save and exit. So that way, back on your dashboard page, you can then come back into it and finish editing it and submitting it. Your other option is to save the page you're working on and continue to the next page. So you have 2 options at the bottom, and that will be consistent on every page. Once you get to page 2, you'll notice you have an additional option at the bottom. So you can save the page you're working on. In this case, you've moved from the general page to the planning and impact page. If you realize you want to make some changes back on the general page, you can save what you're working on this page, and it'll take you back to the previous page. Again, you'll have a save and exit, which will let you come back in from your own dashboard, and then you will have a save and continue. So this navigation works the same whether you're doing the organization profile or you are doing the event applications. And again, notice that as you move from tab to tab, you will also get a confirmation at the top of the page that says in process application data saved. So you'll know everything that you're working through is being saved as you're doing it. So we have never seen information lost. And so the system is kind of protecting you as you're moving through. And once you get to the submit, you'll see a confirmation at the top. Now, there's some standard navigation on all pages, and we thought we would run through it so you know on text boxes. Text boxes you'll see a lot on the navigation page, on the narrative pages. You can tell a text box because it will have a little pull down on the corner here, little 3 stripes. You're probably used to these to any online applications for anything you've ever done. So those will take a unlimited amount of text, and then you can actually expand it down as you go. Date entry boxes, those are fixed. So there will be a place for like a begin date and an end date. Those also will check date, kind of the relevance. In other words, does it fit in the time frame that we are accepting applications for? Then there's selection boxes. It will say select, and there will be a drop down. So this will limit, you can't, like a text box will be free form. A selection box is you can only select from the list that's given there. Then there are the fun buttons. So radio buttons will always be round, same as any online forms you've ever worked with. Radio buttons allow you to pick just one. So round buttons, you pick a yes or a no, or you pick, there's one that says, what's the primary function? Is it cultural education? Again, round button, you can only pick one. And then there are check boxes. Check boxes are always square and will allow multiple selections. So in other words, are you planning to promote this just citywide, internationally, nationally, or regional? So you could select everything there. There will also be help links. Help links within our system are always underlined and they are always in green. So in this case, looking up a council district lookup, you click on this and it would take you to the lookup page. Then we also have document uploads. These are the ones I mentioned that you need to upload within the organization profile. So it would be things like lists of board members, bios for board members, and then for budgets and audited budgets or past documents. So, and we'll talk about these. These all uploads work all the same way. It will allow you to either do a click on the upload and get a navigation box to pick the document, or you can use, and we'll show you how this works in a moment, drag and drop. So you can drop the document in there. And then the other thing that we hope you don't see, but you may occasionally, when you go to your final submission pages, the system will look backwards to make sure everything's been filled in. Are all required fields completed? And if not, at the top of your submission screen, you'll get this nice pink box, and it will tell you what error. In other words, this was left uncompleted, and the green link will take you right back to that section of the application. So that is the basic navigation that will work across all the applications screens, no matter whether it's a organization profile or an event application. Now, we mentioned this lookup. We're going to take a look at it right here. So if you click on the lookup, it will take you to this page on the city site. At the top of the page, you will key in an address, and that address then will be looked up and it will pinpoint where it is within the city limits of Kansas City. Notice Kansas City does have some open areas, like Raytown and North Kansas City, etc. So there's sometimes confusion with addresses that sit right on the border. It may have a Kansas City, Missouri postal address, but it actually may be within the other municipality. So this is where you can find that information. Once you've looked that up, you then need to go back because this has opened a different tab for you. So you have two ways of doing that. You can either press the back button and it will take you back to the screen you came from, or if it's on a different tab, you can click the other tab. And this depends on how you have your browser set up. So we're giving you both options. Sometimes your browser will use your existing tab to open this in it, and then you'll have to use a back button to get back to the application you were working on. If your browser was set to open links in a new tab, then you would be over here and you would click back to edit your organization or edit your event profile, event application. So one or the other will get you back, but you will go into a different screen. Now, uploads. When you see the upload box, you have two options. You can press the upload PDF. We want these all in PDF format. If you don't, we will probably push them back and tell you, please don't upload a Word document or an Excel document. That's actually beneficial for you and us since PDF documents are more secure and we don't want to edit your documents. But if you press the upload PDF, you'll get a navigation box like your file browser. You would then pick the document you want and click open, and it would upload it. If you're going to do drag and drop, you would actually open your own file browser, take the document, drag it, and you'll notice as soon as you get it over that box, the box turns green. It tells you it sees your document. You would drop it, and it would just upload it there. When you do it this way, it will turn green over here. This way, it turns green around the box. Drag and drop, or using your file browser. Once your document has uploaded, that box will go away, and it will be replaced by three different buttons. A view link that will let you view the document you just uploaded, download link for the odd situation that you somehow deleted the document you wanted, but we have a copy on our folder, on our system. You could actually download a copy of everything you've uploaded into our system. Or you view it and you realize you actually had grabbed the wrong document. This gives you the ability to remove it. So if you hit the remove button, this upload box will reappear. So this is your way of correcting something that you uploaded incorrectly. You have the way to review it and make sure it's the right document, but this works consistently across all upload boxes, whether it's in the organization profile or it's in the event application. So, organization profile, some heads up. We kind of mentioned a few of these. Budgets are being requested, and keep in mind the budget is for the entire organization. Within the organization profile, we're not looking for the budget for the event. We're looking for your budget for the organization. So, for example, we're now going to be applying for the 26-27 annual cycle. You are probably still working in 2025, which means you would be uploading your 2025 budget in a P&L format. So your budget should show all your planned revenue for the organization, your forecasted revenue, and all the expenses for the entire organization. Must include both of these, revenues and expenses. So we don't want a form that just has one number on it, or one number it says revenue and another single number it says expense. We want those broken down. Basically, think of standard accounting categories We want those categories for revenue. We want those same categories for your expenses. And again, for the entire one. So this is not the planned budget for the event. We have a lot of groups who accidentally load the events budget. You'll be doing that in the actual event application. You will also be doing the council district. So again, council districts changed in 2023. So we've had a lot of organizations think they know they're in a council district, like they think they knew they were in District 4, but 5 slipped up slightly. So they are now actually in 5, or they're now in 6. So please look up the council districts for the location of your organization. Don't assume, please double check it. Okay, the event application heads up. For the event location, please include both the name of the space, the venue you're using, and the address of it. We have too often that only part of that information is included. We want both of those. And as noted about the council districts, double check the location of the event. So you may have a situation that you're located in one council district, but the venue you're using is in a different council district. We want both of those to be accurate. So make sure you double check where the event is actually being held. Event dates. One line if it's a one-day or a weekend event like we talked. So a one-day event would be the day it's starting and would be the same day for the day it's ending. Weekend might start on a Friday and then end on a Sunday. So multiple lines are available for events like concerts, and I just realized we have a misspell here. So for individual concerts or individual performances. So we see a lot of these for arts groups that are doing a concert series or dance performance series. Think of anything that would have like a season ticket attached to it where people could buy an individual concert or the entire series. The event budget. This is the budget, planned budget for the actual event. So you'll include all your budget information. So all the revenue that you're planning from it. And again, this is for the entire event, not just things you're looking for NTDF revenue or expenses to use. This is all expenses and all revenue for the entire event. Keep in mind, and I would take time to plan your P&L for your event ahead of time, because we want your planned expenses to match as closely as possible the expenses that you're going to be turning in at the end of the event. So take time to plan that event budget ahead of time. Okay. Dates. You will only get one line initially for dates. And obviously we've pulled this from an older application, but this would be like a one-day application. Now, if you need additional dates, there is a button at the bottom that says add another date, and it will kick in another line for you. So an example of a concert series where they've added 3 additional lines. This concert series includes 4 individual concerts. One would be on this date, another one on this date, third one, and fourth one on that date. So we want those broken down by the dates of the actual concerts within the larger series. Again, these are one-day events. If the concert would be done from like a Thursday to a Saturday, this would include that first Thursday start, and the end date for that concert, individual concert, would include like the final date of that one concert. So know your dates ahead of time. So you're going to have to do some planning, because you're planning events that are starting on May 1st of 2026 and running through April 30th of 2027. So get these as accurate as possible. If they were to change, you will need to notify us of the change, and then we will update the information within our system to match. So if changes happen, and we know they do, and it may be something from an artist wasn't available on those dates to contract, or the artist changed, or because of a venue issue you had to change, please communicate those to us. So the budgets for your application for the event, the amount that you put in, the requested amount in the application will pre-fill on the revenue line at the top of the revenue. So that will already, whatever you ask for in the amount requested at the beginning of the event application will pre-fill into the budget for you. And again, then you will add your other revenue items for the entire event, not just for NTDF here. So those would go in the other column with a list of what is the source for those. So it could be donations from members would go in other. These will cross-foot in total for you. And then on the expense side, you will have a list of kind of accepted expense categories. So this would be your source for your event you would put here, and then the expense amounts would go to the right of those. So there may be expenses that you have that are only being taken against NTDF, or expenses that you're using your other sources of revenue to cover. Again, this will cross total, and then you'll get a total at the bottom. So you'll see your total expenses here, and you would have seen then your total revenue on the previous revenue screen. But you also see a balance. So for NTDF, the balance should also always be 0. So the expenses that you're planning on taking for NTDF should match the total NTDF revenue you're asking for. So make sure this one totals. You might have a income or loss on the event, and that's permitted. So that's the kind of the NTDF overview and Q&A on the applications. If you have questions on those, we're going to take a little short break on that, and then we're going to do a quick overview on the things that will happen once an award is done. So any questions from either Sarah or from Fred that have come up on the actual applications? Okay.
Steve, really quick, we're getting a lot of questions about events and series. If there's maybe events that are happening throughout the year, but are similar. So can you just once again give a good example of what a series is?
The simplest series that I can use is think of the Kansas City Symphony. The Kansas City Symphony does a classical series, and then they also do a more of a modern series. And so one is kind of their pop series, and the pop series is one list of about 7 to 10 concerts with different artists occurring across that series period. So the series may start at the end of 2026 and go through the beginning of 2027. So that would be kind of the entire series. So within the dates, they would be listing those 7 individual Pops concerts. The same thing would hold true for their concert series. Their classical series happens to be about 14 concerts. So if they were applying, they would have to list all 14 concerts that are within that. Another example, we have some smaller choral groups that actually do individual concerts. So we'll call it the the ABC choral performing group, they would actually have, and theirs becomes more interesting because a lot of those groups perform at churches or venues, and they only do one church or one concert at an individual venue. So they would list a series of venues. They would list their concert season, but then for the dates, they would include like their Bach concert, and then maybe a separate one for their concert by another composer, and then another concert by a different composer. Those would be 3 different concerts within that concert series. Same thing could hold true for some performing dance, modern dance, or ballet groups. So they might have 5 performances, but you can buy a season ticket for all of them, or you can buy each performance individually. That would be a series also. So think of anything that has a larger arc than the individual concert, but that individual concert is part of a larger series that they can either sell as a season ticket or as individual concerts. So anytime you look at, and same holds true for theater groups, that for the one that comes to mind is the small theater in Crown Center, which does musical heritage type performances. They have a season that runs about 6 to 8 months long, but they do, I think, up to a dozen different plays or musicals kind of during that period. So anything that kind of fits into that group would be considered a series and should be applied for as a series. So if that wasn't clear enough, are there any additional questions that we may need to drill down on those a little bit farther?
I think that was a great answer. And as stated before, if you have any individual questions, you can always reach out to us.
Absolutely. And we're going to be giving you that information shortly. So let's assume an organization gets an award from NTDF. There's some things that have to happen. If the organization is not already a supplier with the city, they must become a supplier. Without a supplier number within our system, we can't pay you. So obviously it's important for that to be done. We are aware of who is or is not already registered with the city as a supplier, and we will initiate that new supplier setup from our side. So it's not something you have to worry about. You also then will have to upload contract support documents. So we will be contracting with any organizations that have an event approved or awarded. The contracts are by each individual event. So let's say you have 3, we would do 3 contracts with you. If you have 2 events awarded, we would be doing 2 contracts with you. We're going to also cover the importance of timing and how our contracts work, because we're going with a little different contract than we did before. We started this about 2 years ago. We do PO contracts, which are all electronic. They're no longer paper signed contracts. So the supporting documents that are required, all organizations have to supply a certificate of good standing from the Missouri Secretary of State. We had a question earlier about foundations and trusts. So foundations and trusts cannot produce a certificate of good standing from the Missouri Secretary of State. So that's one of the issues why they cannot work with us, or we work with them. You also need your certificate of insurance, and we go into this in a lot more detail in the kind of post-award class. And then we also need a W-9 filed by the organization. And note there is an old version of the W-9s from the IRS that was revised in 2018. We need the newest 2024 version. And then for any events that have an award of $5,000 or more, there are two additional documents required. One is the E-Verify MOU, sometimes just referred to as the MOU rather than the full memo of understanding, and then an event, employee eligibility form that is from the city. Now, some of you are probably saying, but we don't have any employees. These are required whether you have employees or not. So whether you have 0 employees, W-9 paid employees, or you have 5, all organizations with a award over $5,000 or more are required to do those. Now, certificate of insurance, we're going to kind of fly through this, but these are the city's requirements for insurance. So we require general liability, commercial liability. It gives you the limits for those. If you have 4 or more W-2 paid employees, the city follows the same rules that the state of Missouri follows, which is you have to have workman's comp. And then if you have any autos that are registered to your organization, you also have to carry commercial auto liability. And then the city needs to be included with the language shown here as an additional insured on the policy because you're doing the event with funding and contracting from the city has to be covered for any liability for your event also. Your carriers will know exactly what that means and how to do it. And then what we're requesting, your uploads will be on an Accord form. An Accord form is a one-page form that, again, your carrier will know. It's a simple PDF and a one-page upload. If you are $5,000 or more, this is the information for doing the E-Verify, which is the government site, memo of understanding. You will have to register. If you've never registered an organization with them before, you will have to go through a little training process. They issue their own ID number. So know that that ID number is not your EIN. It's a separately issued number from E-Verify. You would print off, and you can print off a sample form. Which can create some confusion. That sample form is not what we're looking for. It gives you an idea of what you're signing, but we're looking for the actual generated form by the site, which will have your information already pre-printed into it. And the employee affidavit is a simple form that has to be notarized. It's printed off of our own site. That way we can keep it updated because it does update occasionally. And again, those last two have to be done if you're $5,000 or more, whether you have employees or not. Importance of timing. We cannot do a contract with you until we have your documents uploaded because they're actually included in the contract. They become attachments to the contract. And then the one thing that we've seen, and some of you may already be aware of this, is some events do not have, or some organizations do not carry their insurance at the organization level. In other words, they don't have a year-round full-time policy. They actually only carry insurance for the event. Event insurance quite often is not issued until the week before the event. But what we have found out, that would completely delay your contract and make it almost impossible for us to issue on time. The carriers will quite often be able to issue you a copy of it beforehand, because it will have a begin and end date for the event within the policy. So sometimes a good carrier will be able to get that to you a month or two in advance. If you have a problem with that, again, it's something that we can discuss with you. And then you'll be sent your notifications, like we said, several months after your application is sent out, but those are sent by email. And then you'll also get a link in it for a What's Next webinar that will cover all that previous information in much more detail. And then we will go through that. So you'll have an opportunity to sign up for another webinar. But we wanted you to be aware of that if you do get an award, there are expectations that you need to be aware of that have to be fulfilled for us to be able to do the contracting with you so you can get paid. Okay, we're going to do a quick wrap up with any final Q&A in a moment. This is the contact information that if you have any questions, send your emails to ntdf@kcmo.org, and then you can copy either Fred or myself on them. But any major questions or communications, please send it to the NTDF address. Realize Fred and I occasionally do take days off and take vacations. NTDF is a shared mailbox, so if one of us is out, the other one will be able to see your information. So don't send it to just one of us. Make sure you send it to NTDF and then copy us if you want it to make sure that one of us sees it also. We also have phone numbers if it's more urgent, so feel free to call us. You may at times roll to voicemail, but we try to get back to you within 24 hours. And for any of the additional questions that you've thought of that didn't come up before, we want to give you a little time for those. So, any new questions that have come in? What I will tell you, once we get done with this, we will take care of pulling the recording down. It will go to our communications group, and then we will have a link for it on our website. So this will be viewable again. If you prefer the live ones, we have another one coming up in January that we're doing the week before this closes. We have a lot of times that we know people have questions if they've started through the application process. So we have another one that is coming up in January. If you want to do it live, we have no problem with you going through these twice, or you can also just go back through it on the recorded version. If there are no final questions, we're going to honor your time and give you 15 minutes back from the hour and a half we had booked for this. We do appreciate you going through our training classes, and we look forward to working with all of you in the future. Thank you.